What happens to food when there is no salt? Have you ever sat at a table, hungry and expectant, only to taste a meal that has no seasoning, no life, no spark of flavor? Immediately, you feel disappointment, maybe even frustration, because you know something essential is missing. That simple pinch of salt has the power to transform what is ordinary into something extraordinary. Now imagine your life without salt. Not the white crystals you place in your kitchen jar, but the salt of strength, purity, and resilience that preserves your very soul. Throughout history, salt has been more than just a spice. It was once so valuable that men traded it as if it were gold. Armies were paid in salt. Families preserved their food for long journeys with salt. And even in sacred texts and ancient writings, salt is mentioned as a symbol of covenant, loyalty, and protection. Salt has always stood for something far greater than its tiny grains suggest. Yet here lies the horrifying truth. When salt loses its power, everything begins to rot, decay, and lose its meaning. There are people today who are alive, breathing, walking, but their hearts are tasteless, their spirits are bland, their relationships are decaying because they have lost their salt. They have allowed bitterness to replace seasoning, pain to replace preservation, and hopelessness to take the place of faith. Without salt, their lives no longer carry flavor. The horrifying truth is not just the absence of salt on your plate, but the absence of salt in your spirit. Dr. David Yonggi Cho once wrote about the power of small, simple faith, how even a mustard seed can move mountains. In the same way, salt is small, but mighty. It takes only a little salt to transform an entire meal, and it takes only a spark of courage, a drop of love, a grain of faith to transform an entire life. That is the secret power of salt. Its size does not reflect its strength. But what happens when salt is thrown out, when it is wasted, when it is trampled underfoot? It becomes useless. That is why the world around us feels so broken. Families crumble when they lose the salt of unity. Dreams die when they lose the salt of perseverance. A person who gives up loses their salt, and the enemy of your soul celebrates because he knows blandness leads to decay, and decay leads to destruction. Yet here is the hope: salt can be restored. Your life can regain its flavor. No curse, no wound, no betrayal can rob you of the power to be salt again. You may feel crushed, ground down, dissolved like salt in water. But remember, salt does not disappear, it only transforms. Once dissolved, it still seasons, it still preserves, it still brings life to everything it touches. So, rise up. Break every curse that says you are finished. Preserve your dreams, season your relationships, and carry purity in your heart. Be the salt that stops decay around you. The world is hungry, desperate for taste, desperate for light, desperate for something real. You carry the secret power of salt. Never lose it. Never give it away. And never forget you are meant to flavor the earth. Preserve the good, and reveal the truth that even the smallest grain can change everything. The horrifying truth about salt is that we often underestimate its power, not just in our kitchens, but in our lives. Imagine for a moment that you are at a feast, a table overflowing with food that looks beautiful, smells rich, and promises satisfaction. But as you take the first bite, there is no taste, no spark, no flavor. Everything is bland. Everything is empty. You might still eat, but you will not enjoy, you will not feel alive in the process. This is exactly how many people live their lives, full of possessions, surrounded by opportunities, walking through daily routines, but missing the one thing that brings meaning: salt. Salt is more than seasoning, it is preservation, it is purity, it is resilience. It is what keeps your heart alive in the middle of trials, what keeps your dreams from decaying, what preserves your character when the world tries to rot you with negativity and doubt. Without salt, life is tasteless, Relationships are empty, and hope begins to spoil. History shows us the value of salt. It was called white gold because it preserved life in times when there was no technology to keep food fresh. Armies marched with salt. Kings paid soldiers with it. Families traded it as treasure. Salt was so valuable because it did something invisible yet powerful. It kept decay away. In the same way, your soul needs salt. Without the salt of faith, you lose courage in the storm. Without the salt of love, your heart grows cold. Without the salt of discipline, your dreams begin to rot. And the horrifying truth is that many do not even notice when they have lost their salt. They wonder why life feels heavy, why relationships feel broken, why their spirit feels weak. It is because the salt that once preserved them has been poured out, wasted, or abandoned. But here is the secret power of salt. It only takes a little to transform everything. Just a grain in the pot changes the flavor of an entire meal. Just one word of encouragement can restore a weary heart. Just one act of kindness can shift the course of someone's day. Just one seed of faith can rebuild a broken dream. This is why you must never underestimate the small things. Your presence in this world matters. Your influence, even in small doses, can preserve life, can season despair with hope, can stop decay in the people around you. The tragedy is when salt loses its saltiness. When you give up on your integrity, when you surrender your courage, when you let your spirit grow bitter instead of pure, your salt is thrown away. And a life without salt is a life open to decay. But the good news is salt can always be renewed. Even when crushed, ground, or dissolved, it never loses its essence. The same is true for you. Life may have broken you, dissolved your strength, scattered you in tears, but deep within, your essence is still powerful. You still carry the ability to flavor your world, to preserve what is good, and to drive away the rot of despair. All it takes is to reclaim your salt, to rise again, and to remember that the secret power of salt lies not in its size, but in its ability to transform everything it touches. Salt is small, but it carries a message larger than life itself. When you look at those tiny grains, it seems impossible to think that they could hold the power to preserve food for months, to heal wounds, to cleanse impurities, and to give meaning to taste. Yet, salt has been treasured for centuries, not only for what it does, but also for what it represents. It represents permanence, strength, and covenant. It is not an accident that salt was once used as a sign of loyalty and trust, because salt does not easily decay or vanish. It remains, it endures, and it preserves what would otherwise be lost. Now, think of your own life. Are you carrying salt in your spirit? Or are you walking through the days bland, tasteless, and without preservation? A life without salt is a life vulnerable to rot, because bitterness creeps in, doubt spreads, and curses attach themselves to places where there is no purity. The horrifying truth is that many people keep adding more and more to their lives. More money, more possessions, more achievements. But because there is no salt in their hearts, it all loses meaning, like a feast that looks beautiful but leaves no joy when eaten. But the secret power of salt is that you do not need much of it to change everything. A small act of faith can preserve your future. A single grain of love can restore a broken relationship. One word of truth can protect an entire generation from lies. This is why salt is such a powerful metaphor for life. You may feel small, insignificant, forgotten, but you are the salt of the earth. You were never meant to simply exist. You were created to preserve, to season, to protect, and to bring out the goodness hidden within. Just as salt unlocks the flavor of food, your presence unlocks the hidden value in the lives of others. Without you, the world is bland. With you, it comes alive. And yet, salt can lose its saltiness if it is left exposed, neglected, or wasted. When you surrender to despair, when you trade purity for compromise, when you allow your heart to grow bitter instead of kind, you lose your flavor. You become like salt thrown to the ground, trampled underfoot, no longer serving its purpose. That is the horrifying truth. People can live, work, and even succeed outwardly, but if they have lost their salt within, they are already decaying inside. The beauty, however, is that salt, even when crushed or dissolved, never loses its essence. It may disappear into the water, but it is still there, seasoning everything around it. The same is true for you. Life may crush you, storms may dissolve your strength, and losses may scatter you, but your essence, your true power, your inner salt, is still alive. And as long as it remains, you can bring flavor, you can bring preservation, you can bring healing to a world desperate for something real. Salt has always been a symbol of something greater than itself. When we sprinkle it into our food, it seems so ordinary, so common. Yet hidden in those tiny crystals is a lesson that can shape the way we live. Salt preserves what would otherwise decay. It stops corruption from spreading. It cleanses, it purifies, and it brings taste to what is bland. In the same way, your life is meant to be a preserving force, a cleansing presence, a spark that brings flavor into dark and bitter places. But here lies the horrifying truth. When you lose your salt, you lose your purpose. When you abandon faith, when you give up on love, when you stop holding on to truth, your inner salt begins to fade, and the world around you starts to rot. Many live each day working, achieving, but their lives are bland, because they have lost the very thing that gives it meaning. They are like food without seasoning, beautiful to the eye, but empty to the soul. Salt does not work by being loud, flashy, or overwhelming. Its power is in its subtlety. A pinch can change everything. It teaches us that greatness is not about size or noise, but about essence. You do not need to be famous, rich, or powerful to make a difference. You only need to be salty, to carry purity, resilience, and love in your spirit. That is enough to preserve your family, to heal your friendships, to season your community with hope. A grain of salt is small, yet it transforms an entire meal. In the same way, your smallest action, a word of encouragement, a moment of honesty, a silent prayer, can change the entire course of someone's life. That is the secret power of salt. It is never measured by its size, but by its impact. Yet, there is a danger. Salt can lose its saltiness, and when it does, it becomes useless. What good is a person who was created to shine, but chooses to blend into darkness? What good is a heart meant to preserve love, but instead allows bitterness to spread? The tragedy of life is not failure, but losing your flavor, losing the very essence that made you valuable in the first place. A job may pay you, a title may crown you, but without salt in your soul, none of it lasts. But here is the hope. Salt, even when dissolved, is never gone. It may disappear from sight, but it is still there, working, changing, preserving. Life may crush you, circumstances may dissolve your strength, but your essence cannot be destroyed. Deep within, you still carry that preserving power, that seasoning touch, that purifying spirit. All you need is to stir it again, to rise again, to reclaim the flavor that was always yours. Because when you carry salt within, you do not just survive, you transform everything around you. Salt is ordinary to the eye, but extraordinary in its essence. It looks like dust, yet it carries the power to change everything it touches. Without it, food spoils, flavor disappears, and life loses its sharpness. This is more than a lesson about kitchens. It is a mirror for the human soul. There are people living today who look alive, who speak, work, and dream, yet deep within, they are bland, tasteless, and decaying because they have lost their salt. They have allowed their hearts to grow numb, their faith to grow weak, their love to grow cold. And the horrifying truth is that when a life loses its salt, it becomes vulnerable to bitterness, to curses, to spiritual decay that spreads silently until joy is gone and hope is crushed. A life without salt is like a lamp without light, a meal without flavor, a body without a spirit. It exists, but it does not live. Salt teaches us that strength is not always loud, and transformation is not always obvious. A single grain can flavor an entire meal. In the same way, one act of faith can preserve your destiny. One word of kindness can heal a broken heart. One moment of courage can keep a dream alive. Salt is proof that the smallest things carry the greatest power. You may feel small in this world, invisible even, but your presence has meaning. Your influence seasons the lives of others, whether you realize it or not. This is the secret power of salt. It doesn't boast, but it always makes its presence felt. Yet we must confront the danger of losing saltiness. What happens when salt is cast away, when it no longer carries its flavor? It becomes useless, trampled underfoot, forgotten. This is what happens when we compromise our values, when we abandon purity, when we let bitterness take root. A life meant to preserve begins to rot. A heart designed to heal becomes a source of pain. That is why so many wander through existence, restless, searching, and unfulfilled. They have lost the salt of their soul. But the beauty of salt is that it endures. Crush it, grind it, dissolve it in water, its essence still remains. Even when life breaks you, even when storms dissolve your strength, your inner salt is never truly gone. It is still there, hidden, waiting to rise again. And when it returns, it seasons everything around it. This means that no matter what you have faced, no matter what you have lost, your essence still carries the power to transform. You can still preserve love in your family, still season your work with integrity, still cleanse your heart from bitterness. Salt is a reminder that you were not made to be bland, weak, or decaying. You were made to preserve what is good, to protect what is pure, to give flavor to life itself. You were made to carry a power so small in size yet so great in impact that even the darkest places cannot resist its presence. Salt, though it appears as the most common thing on earth, holds within it a mystery that speaks louder than words. It is tiny, overlooked, often dismissed, but it carries the power to preserve life and protect against decay. When salt is present, food remains fresh, flavor comes alive, and what would have rotted is kept whole. But when salt is absent, decay sets in quickly, silently, and powerfully. This is the horrifying truth about life as well. Without salt in your spirit, without that essence of faith, purity, and strength, everything begins to rot from within. People may look alive on the outside, smiling, working, even celebrating, but inside, they are wasting away because they have lost their salt. They have lost the element that gives meaning to their existence. Salt is proof that power does not always come in size or appearance. A handful of salt may look small, but its effect can transform everything it touches. The same is true of you. You may feel like one small person in a world of billions, but you carry within you the power to season your environment, to preserve goodness, and to stop corruption. Your presence can shift the atmosphere of your family, your workplace, your relationships. Just as salt cannot be ignored when it is added to food, your life, when lived with conviction and purpose, cannot be ignored by those around you. The secret power of salt is that it works quietly but undeniably. It does not need to announce itself, yet its effect is felt by everyone who encounters it. But here lies the danger. Salt can lose its saltiness, and when it does, it becomes worthless. It cannot preserve, it cannot flavor, it cannot protect. This is the warning life gives us: do not lose your salt. Do not let bitterness harden you. Do not let compromise dissolve your values. Do not allow discouragement to strip away your faith. For the moment you lose your salt, you lose your ability to influence, to preserve, to protect. Many walk through life with empty hearts, chasing wealth, power, or recognition, yet none of it satisfies, because they have traded their salt for things that cannot preserve the soul. And yet, the beauty of salt is that even when it dissolves, it does not disappear. You may feel broken, scattered, or forgotten. But like salt in water, your essence is still there, working in ways you cannot see. Even if life has crushed you, even if people have tried to trample on you, the truth is your inner salt still has power. It is still able to cleanse, to heal, to preserve, and to bring out the flavor of life again. Salt teaches us that it is not about being the biggest, the loudest, or the strongest. It is about carrying purity, resilience, and faith in every grain of who you are. The world is decaying, but your salt can stop it. The world is bland, but your salt can season it. The world is broken, but your salt can preserve what is good until it shines again. Salt has always been more than what we see on our tables. It is a quiet reminder that even the smallest things can carry immeasurable power. A grain of salt looks insignificant. Yet when it touches food, everything changes. It awakens flavor, it preserves what would spoil. It purifies what is unclean. In the same way, your life was meant to carry salt, a presence that brings meaning, protection, and hope wherever you go. But the horrifying truth is that many have lost their salt. They move through each day tired, restless, and empty. Not because they lack resources, but because they lack essence. A heart without salt cannot preserve love. A dream without salt cannot endure hardship. A soul without salt becomes vulnerable to bitterness and decay. This is why so many chase more and more, yet feel less and less. They have forgotten that life is not about the abundance of what you own, but the presence of salt within your spirit. History teaches us that salt was once called white gold. Armies were paid with it. Kingdoms fought for it, and families survived because of it. Salt was never trivial. It was life itself. Think of what that means for you. If salt was once valued as treasure, then the salt within you is priceless. Your faith, your courage, your kindness, your resilience. These are the grains that preserve your destiny. They keep you from decay. They season your relationships. They purify your path when darkness tries to overtake you. Without them, you may look whole, but inside you are spoiling. The secret power of salt is that it works in silence. It does not shout, it does not boast, but its impact cannot be denied. Just a pinch changes everything. In the same way, you don't need to be known by the world to make a difference. One grain of truth can protect an entire generation from lies. One act of love can restore a family. One spark of faith can move mountains in your life. That is the essence of salt, small, unseen, but undeniably powerful. Yet the warning is clear: salt can lose its saltiness. When it does, it becomes useless, thrown out, trampled underfoot. This happens when you let discouragement rob your courage, when you trade purity for compromise, when you allow bitterness to harden your spirit. And this is the horrifying truth. The world does not only decay when evil rises, but also when the good lose their salt. If you give up on your salt, you give up on your purpose. But here is hope. Salt, even when dissolved, does not vanish. It still remains, still seasons, still purifies. Life may crush you, storms may dissolve your strength, but your essence remains within you. You are not finished. You are not empty. Your salt still carries the power to preserve, to cleanse, to heal, and to transform everything it touches. You may feel small, but like salt, your impact is greater than your size. Salt is ordinary in appearance, but extraordinary in purpose. It hides in tiny grains, yet it carries the power to preserve, protect, and transform. Without salt, food decays, flavor fades, and what once was nourishing becomes harmful. This is more than a lesson for the kitchen. It is the reality of life itself. A life without salt loses its strength, its purity, and its preservation. The horrifying truth is that many walk through their days with abundance on the outside, but emptiness on the inside. They have money, possessions, titles, but no flavor, no preservation, no essence that gives meaning. And when salt is gone, decay takes its place. Bitterness takes root. Darkness begins to spread. A person who loses their salt becomes like a house with no foundation, standing for a moment but crumbling in time. Salt has always carried deep value. In ancient times, it was so treasured that it was traded like gold, paid to soldiers as wages, and seen as a sign of loyalty and covenant. Its presence meant life could be preserved, journeys could be sustained, and nations could endure. Think of this truth for your own life. If salt was once priceless, then the salt within you is beyond measure. Your kindness, your faith, your determination. These are the grains of salt that preserve your future. They protect your dreams from rotting in the storms of doubt. They season your relationships with love. They purify your path when compromise threatens to stain it. Without these grains, your soul starves and your spirit decays. What makes salt so powerful is its quiet strength. It does not need to announce itself, but its impact is undeniable. A pinch is enough to change the taste of a meal. In the same way, one small act of love can change the course of someone's day. One choice to stay faithful when it's easier to quit can preserve your destiny. One word of truth can silence 1,000 lies. You don't need to be large to be powerful. Like salt, your greatness is not in your size, but in your ability to transform. But here lies the danger. Salt can lose its saltiness. And when it does, it is cast aside, forgotten, trampled underfoot. This is what happens when a person loses their inner essence. When integrity is traded for convenience. When hope is surrendered to fear. When compassion is swallowed by selfishness, the salt is gone. And without salt, there is only rot. This is the horrifying truth that so many never realize until it is too late. Yet even in this truth, there is hope. Because salt, even when broken or dissolved, does not vanish. It continues to work silently, invisibly, still preserving, still seasoning, still cleansing. You may feel broken today. You may feel dissolved by the storms of life, but your essence is not gone. Your salt still remains. And if you dare to stir it again, to believe again, to love again, to fight again, you will find that the power to preserve and to transform has been within you all along. Salt looks so small, so ordinary, that we often forget the power it carries. Yet without it, food spoils, flavor dies, and what was meant to nourish begins to rot. Salt preserves against decay. It cleanses what is impure, it seasons what is bland, and it strengthens what is weak. In the same way, your life was designed to carry salt, an inner power that protects, purifies, and gives meaning to everything you touch. The horrifying truth is that when a person loses their salt, they lose their purpose. They may still walk, breathe, and even achieve outward success, but deep inside, they are tasteless, decaying, and fragile. A life without salt is a life without resilience, without preservation, without true joy. From ancient times, salt was never trivial. It was treasured, fought over, and even used as wages for soldiers. It was seen as a sacred element, a symbol of loyalty and permanence. Families survived because salt preserved their food. Nations endured because salt kept life from rotting away. Think of what that means for your soul. If salt was valued as treasure in the world, then your inner salt, your integrity, your courage, your faith, is worth far more than gold. It is what keeps your character strong when life presses hard. It is what seasons your words so they bring life instead of death. It is what preserves your hope when despair threatens to spread like rot in your heart. Salt's secret power lies not in its size, but in its effect. Just a pinch is enough to transform a meal. In the same way, the smallest act of faith can sustain your future. The smallest act of kindness can heal a broken heart. And the smallest act of perseverance can preserve a dream that feels like it's slipping away. You may think you are small in this vast world, but like salt, your essence carries immeasurable power. Your presence can transform environments, your voice can shift hearts, your love can preserve hope in others. Yet salt carries a warning: it can lose its saltiness, and when it does, it becomes useless, trampled underfoot, forgotten. This happens when you let discouragement replace determination, when you trade truth for compromise, when you allow bitterness to corrode your heart. That is the horrifying truth. Not that evil grows stronger, but that good people lose their salt. A family decays when love loses its salt. A dream dies when faith loses its salt. A soul rots when courage loses its salt. But here is the miracle: even when salt is crushed, ground, or dissolved, its essence is never lost. Dissolve it in water, and though unseen, it still seasons, still preserves, still purifies. The same is true for you. Life may have broken you. Storms may have dissolved your strength. Betrayal may have scattered you. But your salt, your true essence, is still alive. It is still working silently, waiting for you to steer it again. You still have the power to preserve what is good, to season what is bland, and to purify what has been stained. You are salt, and as long as your essence remains, you carry the secret power to transform everything you touch. Salt is one of the smallest things we handle every day, but it carries a secret power far greater than its size. It preserves, it protects, it cleanses, and it gives life flavor. Without salt, food spoils, flavor disappears, and what should nourish us becomes bitter or empty. This is not only a truth for the kitchen, it is a reflection of life itself. When a person loses their salt, the inner strength, purity, and faith that gives meaning to existence, their soul begins to decay. They may appear successful, busy, even admired on the outside, but inside they feel tasteless and broken. This is the horrifying truth. A life without salt cannot preserve love, cannot hold joy, and cannot sustain purpose. For centuries, salt was more valuable than gold. It was traded, fought over, and cherished as a source of life. Armies survived because of salt. Kingdoms flourished because salt preserved their food. It was more than seasoning. It was survival. That is how precious your salt is. Your integrity, your courage, your kindness, your faith. These are your grains of salt. They are what preserve your family from breaking apart, what season your relationships with love, what protect your dreams from rotting away in the storms of doubt. Without them, everything collapses in silence. The secret power of salt is that it works quietly but effectively. It doesn't shout or demand attention, yet when it is present, nothing can ignore its impact. A single pinch can transform the entire meal. In the same way, one act of compassion can transform a hurting heart. One seed of faith can sustain an entire future. One word of encouragement can stop decay in someone else's soul. You don't need to be mighty in size or loud in presence. Like salt, your greatness is measured by your influence, not your appearance. But here lies the danger. Salt can lose its saltiness. When it does, it becomes useless, cast aside, trampled underfoot. That is what happens when you allow bitterness to replace forgiveness. When you trade truth for lies, when you let fear replace faith. The world does not only decay when evil rises, it decays when the good lose their salt. A marriage fails when love loses its salt. A dream dies when perseverance loses its salt. A soul breaks when purity loses its salt. That is the horrifying truth that many only realize too late. Yet even in this truth, there is hope. Because salt, though it may be crushed or dissolved, never loses its essence. Dissolve it in water, and though invisible, it is still present, still working, still preserving. You may feel broken by pain, dissolved by loss, or scattered by betrayal. But your salt is not gone. Deep within, your essence still carries power. You still have the ability to season the world with hope, to preserve love in your family, to protect your destiny with faith. Your salt remains alive. And as long as it remains, you still carry the power to transform everything around you. So, as we draw this to a close, remember this simple but eternal truth. You were never created to be bland, weak, or forgotten. You were created to be salt, to preserve what is good, to season life with love, to purify what is broken, and to stop the decay of despair around you. The world is desperate for flavor, desperate for hope, desperate for light, and you carry the power to provide it. Even if you feel crushed, dissolved, or invisible, your essence remains strong and your salt still works. Do not throw it away. Do not let it be trampled. Do not let bitterness steal it from you. Guard it, stir it, live it. Because when you keep your salt alive, your life not only has meaning, it transforms everything it touches.